Welcome to the fifth class in the study of the fourth chapter of the Yoga Sutras. This chapter is titled Kaivalya Pādaḥ. Now we're going to study a very important portion of the Yoga Sutras. We already started it last class, where the author distinguishes the mind from the seer, the consciousness, or the Puruṣa, and how he talks about how the Puruṣa perceives the mind, or theory of perception. So there were some questions from different people. So I'm going to answer that. There was apparently a little bit of confusion also about the different components of the mind. So that is why these things have to be looked at as compositely, as looking at the forest, so that you don't look at the trees and lose the bigger picture. So let me go to that portion. So let's first start looking at the mind, and then we will look at the consciousness which illumines the mind. Now, the confusion arises because people use different terms and they classify things a little differently. So the parts of the mind is called antakarana, that is the inner. Karanam is the instrument, anta is inner. It is called the inner instrument. And this, what I'm giving here, is a strict Vedantic classification. Okay, so there is the mind consists of 4 portions. These are not like, they're all a little mix and match. It's not, you can't exactly say this portion is here, that portion is there. So the mind has 4 portions. Manas refers to the feeling distributed throughout the body. Emotions, processing, all these come under manas. Then buddhi, the intellect. Largely, this is associated with the prefrontal cortex. Then ahankara, this is a little mysterious thing. The sense of, you can call, there's no literal translation word in English. So there's, it's difficult to find a word which literally denotes what ahankara is. It literally means, kara means maker. That's like karanam is an instrument, one which does. Aham kara means the I maker. So this is the portion of the mind which seems to grasp every aspect, like the feelings, everything, and says, and puts an I before it. I feel anger. Instead of saying there is anger in the mind, it says it grasps everything, and it says, I feel anger. I am smart. I made a decision. The intellect makes a decision. Let's go that way. Let's not go this way. Then the ahankara just, it snatches that and says, it puts the I and says, I made the decision. And then this chitta, according to Vedanta, it's a memory faculty. Last time we saw, I described it as the movie theater example, where from the memory, the things can go from the senses, the film goes this way, from the memory, the film goes that way, and it projects it on the screen. So chittas, literally, it's a memory faculty. Now, why the confusion comes between different portions is because of the analogies. So 2 things you have to remember. And Lena, so this is pertaining to your question. So what I was telling before was that you have to look at the forest and not the trees, and just grasp the big picture. And you have to know all analogies fail, because at some point you can't take it too literally. So I was giving the example of the movie theater, which is commonly used by a lot of, like in the yoga text, how they teach the Yoga Sutras, they use that example, but that also falls apart at some point. So these are the 4 points. Now Lena came and asked me, oh, BKS Iyengar in his book says that the mind has 3 portions, manas, buddhi, ahankara, and the mind is called chitta. So I looked through Swami Hariharananda's commentary. I could not find this, but in the glossary, it says chitta is the three functional aspects of the mind. So you can see there's some difference. I don't know if it's his glossary or it is the glossary of the translator, the person who translated it into English. So let's stick with this, because if you have the three functional aspects, then you leave out the memory faculty. So let's just stick with that. This is not too important. What you have to know is how the consciousness illumines all this. So we are going to see. So pay careful attention. All these four faculties are sometimes lumped together as chitta. They call it the mind field. So that's why there is a saying which says chittiva bhavayati chittam. Chitta shines like the consciousness. Why? Because it is illumined by consciousness, like reflected. That's why they use the term chidabhasa. So there are different analogies to explain the same thing. You have to get the gist of it and not take it too literally. Okay. So one example is the movie theater example, where the film contents are projected onto the screen, and Antakarana or chitta is the mind field, the movie theater. Pratyaya is the contents of the screen. The Puruṣa is the light from the projector. All these examples we've seen before. So from memory, the film goes this way. From senses, it goes this way. There's a reflection on the screen. That is what we see. When I say we see, it is the Puruṣa that sees that. Okay, it sees the reflection. Another way, literally, in the Vedas and in the Upanishads, the term that is used is it illumines. Puruṣa illumines. So think of it like the mind. There are all these vrittis, constantly these impressions are changing. The pattern is changing. That is not visible. It's only when it's illumined by consciousness we see that. But the thing is, the consciousness, you think consciousness being so perfect, the Brahman, it'll tell everything correctly. No, it just tells the contents of the mind. If the mind interprets things differently, that's what we see. So that's what we mean by saying it's projected onto the screen. So this film I've shown from memory, from senses, but it can also be the film of the buddhi, intellect. So it could be like this, the buddhi, intellect, it's like film or some kind of a thing which is projected onto the screen, and that is what you see. And if the intellect makes wrong decisions, that is what you're seeing. It's how the intellect is shaped that is seen. So when it's projected on the screen, when it is illumined, that's the only word that is used. When it's illumined by the Puruṣa, which is the projected light, then everything becomes known to all aspects. So we'll see that with the example. So the Chidabhasa is a reflection on the screen. That is what is perceived by the mind. Now, one important thing I have to say is there is this portion of cognition. There's part awareness, part mechanical nature. So let's look at the intellect, problem solving by the intellect. The mind intellect works mechanically through memory, pattern recognition, and association. This sometimes happens without self-awareness. You don't know what's happening. Quickly, mind just makes the patterns because through habit, even mathematical geniuses, because of the habit, everything happens so fast. There's sometimes like there's no awareness of that. This forms a Vishayakara vritti. Then consciousness illumines that vritti and the experience becomes, so this is the answer. So whenever you know something, then consciousness illumines it. And who knows? It is you, the consciousness. And in that process, the information is available to the mind. When it's known, it's available to the mind, to all the portions of the mind. Otherwise, it's just mechanical thing that's going on. Then consciousness illumines that vritti and the experience becomes, this is the answer. This is one of the steps towards the answer. When you're doing a mathematical, analyzing a problem through multiple steps, sometimes you just are not even aware of the mechanically, the pattern matching happens, and then you say, this is the answer. And this portion is very similar for the manas also. We'll see this mechanical portion. We've seen that is the vishayakara vritti, and when consciousness sheds light on it, purushakara vritti, you become aware of that. Okay, AI works only on the vishayakara vritti. It is therefore not conscious. The mind intellect works mechanically through these memory and pattern recognition. That's also the vishayakara vritti. Now, same thing can be said of the manas, the feeling aspect. Manas responds mechanically to a thought or external situation. The body tenses, the heart beats faster. You are still not aware of the vritti of the manas. Then suddenly you realize, when you feel, that's why they say, feel the body, you feel, my heart is beating faster. I am feeling knots in my stomach. Consciousness illumines that, then the feeling becomes known as fear is present. Okay, now we've seen buddhi, manas, and so we'll go through the cycle. I haven't illustrated ahankara. This is the function. These are the functional aspects. Memory is not described as a functional aspect. So the 4 portions of the mind. I hope it's clear, this classification. Now we'll put everything together. Illustration of the entire chain using fear as an example. Manas experiences. So the manas is also called a king of the senses. Remember in Puranjana Upakyanam? So in the Puranjana Upakyanam, we saw there were 10 soldiers and there was a head soldier. The head soldier was Manas. Manas is also called the king of the indriyas, the senses, because the information from the senses is processed. So Manas experiences fear first. Then consciousness illumines it. Then it becomes aware. It's known. It is known to the buddhi now. Like it's projected on the screen. So this, you can kind of say, okay, the entire mind now knows what's happening. Buddhi decides fight or flight. Then ahankara appropriates the experience and decision as, I feel fear, I need to fight. Okay, I feel the fear, I need to fight. So the I comes in. I will get destroyed otherwise. So consciousness illumines this ahankara also. Ahankara, as I said, is literally I maker. It is not the true I that is seeing everything. Ahankara itself is a very subtle vritti or function of the antakarana. Antakarana is the mind. Usually it stands so close to the light of consciousness that it pretends to be the subject. But in meditation, when discriminatory vivekam, discriminatory knowledge arises, you'll notice there is a sense of I rising. It is claiming, it is a doer thought. There is some hurt that is in this. So ahankara has become the scene at the moment. The real seer is not the ahankara. Do you see that? When the mind slows down, you see there is a sense of I arising that is claiming this. It is now, it's a doer thought. The feeling of hurt is now claimed as my own. You see that in deep meditation. That is why meditation is the key. Then once it becomes the object to the drishyam, it's no longer the subject. You don't feel like it's a subject. It's tricking you into saying that this is the real I, but it's not the real I. Is this somewhat clear? So I try to put everything together so you understand the flow. Okay? Ahankara and the Puruṣa, the difference is true I, the Puruṣa, is a silent illuminator of all states. It is never angry. It never decides. It is not the doer. It never acts. It's not the doer. Ahankara is the reflected borrowed I that claims states like, I am angry, I decide, I know, I act. Okay, we also saw in the 4 states of samadhi, vitarka, vichara, ananda, asmita, the samprajnata samadhi. After the bliss asmita, the pure I remains without this is also not the consciousness, it is the reflected I. It's as though the moon is like the consciousness, remember that example? Then the reflected I is like just a pure reflection of the moon. It is still not the consciousness itself, but it's a reflection. Because why is it not the consciousness? You can never see the consciousness. Subject cannot see itself. But in that case, I am only remains. That is called the Sasmita Samadhi, where all notions, you are a teacher, you're a man, woman, everything fall away, just the I remains. Is this part clear? So I'm trying to connect everything, what you've studied before. I also, in the 2nd chapter, I made a distinction between Ahankara and Asmita. Asmita is better than Ahankara because Ahankara colors, I am smart, I am intelligent, I make this decision. It colors everything. Asmita is just I, but even that is a klesha because it is not the true you. It is just a reflection in the mind. Yes, Amy.
Yeah. Shoot, I hope I can phrase this. The way I can understand it right now, it almost feels like the Puruṣa, even though it's consciousness, it almost doesn't feel conscious because it can't know, it can't do. It's the thing that enables everything, but it doesn't seem to have that. Like without the prakriti, without the other parts of the mind, it seems like pretty useless, I guess.
Yes, that is why Shiva is called Shava without
Right.
Shakti.
Yeah.
But I would slightly rephrase what you said, even though it doesn't seem conscious. No, it is conscious, but it's like somebody who's paralyzed and they're aware. This is a very sad situation to be in. They're aware of everything that's going on, but they can't do anything. But this thing is happy. Puruṣa, its nature is bliss. It is unaffected by anything. It just illumines. It's just the example used in Vedanta and the Bhagavad Gītā everywhere is light. Light just illumines the scene. If the scene is robbery or theft, it still illumines it. It allows the robbers to steal. If it is a neurosurgery, light illumines that somebody is getting cured.
Right, but it doesn't learn and it doesn't know.
Yeah, that is a good point. Correct.
You know what I mean? Like, is it like, does it know everything or does it know nothing? You know, if it's incapable of knowing.
It cannot know because the moment it knows, it changes, but it helps the mind know by shedding light. It is capable of revealing everything. That is why God knows everything, because the mind is so vast, this light, and it's so perfect. It can know everything.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's where I'm tripping. It's like
the tripping point is because our minds are small. That's where.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the consciousness being perfect, it should illumine everything, and we should know. But this mind being small, it cannot grasp the totality because of the limitation.
Okay. So yeah, it can't know unless the mind is present, the other parts of the mind is present. And
yes,
it's revealing power is infinite, but the mind can be finite. And
that's right. Yes.
And Ishvara having the like massive mind means that Ishvara can know everything.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. So that's it about this portion. So ponder over it. I've tried to, again, all these are analogies, and there's also limitation. This is why great people, they use the right words to explain, but I've listened to like hundreds of hours of great teachers like Swami Sarvapriyananda and everybody, because they all talk using analogies and all that. You have to try to get a gist of that. If you take the analogies too literally, it can lead you astray. Okay, now coming back to this portion which we already studied last class, the sutras. Now you will see how they make sense. The titer apratisankramaya tatakara pattau swabuddhi samvedanam. Although the chit does not move, mix, or enter the mind, when the buddhi assumes a consciousness-like form, that's why chittiva bhavayati chittam, this entire mind, it shines as because of the reflection. Because when the buddhi assumes a consciousness-like form, because of the reflecting light, one's own buddhi becomes experienced, illumined. Your intellect itself is illumined. Okay, that is the first one. So this is the reflected consciousness they talk about. Okay, quality of the reflecting medium, we just saw the moon. This is the pure eye we saw. Okay, then it says drashtu drishyoparaktam chittam sarvartam, the mind being colored by the seer and the seen, Puruṣa and the Prakriti, it can understand everything. So this is Amy's question. The Puruṣa itself cannot. That's why they say Shiva without Shakti is Shava, dead body. Shava is a dead body. So mind being colored by the seer and the seen, it can understand everything. Otherwise, the consciousness only illumines. It is useless. You can't do anything without the Prakriti. Now, the other part is the cognition. I said has two steps. One is mechanical, Vishayakara vritti. Even when you are feeling fear, you may be distracted with something, but the stomach is churning. It's only when you bring your awareness, I am feeling this unease, everything that happens. Till that, it remains a Vishayakara vritti. When the consciousness illumines it, it becomes known. So the sculpture is getting formed, but when the light shines on it, you know. So they say the mind takes the form of an object, which means you see a bull, that's mind is now taking that form and consciousness illumines it. That's called the Puruṣakara vritti. Okay, Vishakara vritti or the vritti vyapti is a mechanical process. Okay, so these two steps are there in the knowing process. And then finally, the last thing is, it said, Tadasankhyeya vasanabihi chitramapi parartam samhatyakaritvat. Although the mind has countless vasanas, it's like, seems like a very finely crafted instrument, consisting of many parts, but it exists not for any one of those parts. It exists to serve something else. So this is a general observation the author is making. It serves as a composite instrument serving something else, and the something else is the Puruṣa. Okay, so now okay, I don't want to confuse this anymore. So till that we've seen. Now we will go to some of the benefits that accrue. The end of constant worry about I have to preserve myself. That is deeply etched abhinivesha, the need to prolong life. So Vishesha darshina atma bhava bhavana vinivrittihi. For the one who sees the distinction, Vishesha darshinaha means the one who sees the distinction, atma bhava bhavana, atma bhava bhavana vinivrittihi. So let's see the okay, here the atma bhava refers to the nature of the self. Atma is the Puruṣa. Here Atma means self. Here it refers to the Puruṣa. Atma can be used in different contexts. Atma can be used as this mind, body, this individual. Atma can also mean the deepest individual, which is the Puruṣa, the self with a capital S. So Atma Bhava here means over the nature of the self. So Vishesha Darshinaha, one who sees Vishesha, the specific characteristic which distinguishes the Puruṣa from the mind. For that person, Bhavana Vinivrittihi, the pondering ceases altogether. The bhavana, the notions, all these pondering over the nature of the self, it ceases altogether. This entire worry, the me that I was worried about, is just the mind prakriti, which is designed to change and dissolve. The real me, Puruṣa, is incapable of death or birth. Okay. So Vyasa, in this commentary, he also states that whenever someone feels deep attraction to the path of liberation, even tears come from their eyes, thrill or just hairs. These are all words used in the Bhagavad Gītā. Roma harshanam, that is goosebumps, the hair on your arms, the roma hair on the arm, on the limbs, that stands on end. Upon hearing it, this indicates a seed of previously acquired distinctive knowledge. In other words, attraction to liberation is not a random phenomenon. It's past samskaras or viveka. The fact that you're all studying this is past samskaras. Okay, now we enter the final portion on Kaivalyam or liberation. So the mind gravitates towards liberation. Tada viveka nimnam kaivalya pragbaram chittam. Then, tada means then, at that time, after the realization of the distinction told in the previous sutra. Remember, every sutra connects suture. It's a thread that connects all these pearls. So there's a connection that's running through all that. There's a flow of thought. So tada, then at that time, after the realization of the distinction of the mind and the Puruṣa, viveka, that is the discrimination, then the viveka nimnam, which the discriminating mind, slopes, nimnam means slopes, Kaivalyam pragbaram chittam. So it slopes heavily, bharam means heavy. So it slopes heavily towards, pragbaram means heavily towards Kaivalyam, towards liberation. What's the mind? Then chittam is the mind. The discriminating mind inclines heavily towards freedom. Okay. In the previous sutra, Yogi realized the distinction, I am the Puruṣa, not the mind. Now in 4.26, Patanjali describes the automatic structural shift which happens in the mind's energy. The mind which used to be addicted to the world now wants silence. Once the mind clearly sees it is not the self, it stops serving ignorance and begins serving liberation. Okay, so in the previously also, we saw this sutra on the Vyuttana Nirodha Samskarayo Abhibhava Pradurbhavo Nirodakshana Chittanvayo Nirodha Parinamaha. It's a tug of war between the outgoing tendencies and the restraining tendencies. Every time you meditate, the restraining tendency becomes stronger. And it is then the mind becomes heavily leaning towards the restraining tendencies, which is towards Kaivalyam. So that is what this sutra says. Okay. So far, everything good? Long discussions. Yeah, we'll finish this soon and we'll have the long discussions after class. So the mind heavily gravitates. The example Vyasa gives us, when the river is flowing, sometimes it can find these small grooves. It gets things. I can flow here. So the river flows into these small rivulets. Everything can be a dead end, accumulates into a pool. So mind is like water flowing into many canals. Family, status, fear, pleasure, memory, regret, spiritual ambition, everything. So after the 25th Sutra, when the Puruṣa Prakriti distinction is seen, the mind has seen the mountain slope. It knows where gravity is. So it will flow there towards, eventually, where does it want to reach? The river wants to reach the ocean. And the dam, finally, the dam, that is the ignorance. So the dam is also broken. So the river eventually enters the ocean of Kaivalya, the liberation. But strictly speaking, all this it's a metaphor. You are always liberated. It's this avidya, ignorance. When it's broken, you realized, I was just one water continuum. It looks like I'm searching, but I'm always this water. That is known. And Patanjali gives a warning. Old habits die hard. He says, Tachitreshu pratyayantharani samskarebhyah. Tachitreshu, in those intervals of discriminative awareness, chitreshu, it means intervals. Tat, in those intervals, pratyaya antarani, other thoughts. Pratyaya is the contents of the screen of the mind, antarani, other thoughts on the antarani here, other thoughts in the screen of the mind will arise due to samskarepyah, due from past impressions, past samskaras, due to the intervals of discriminative awareness. When there are intervals in the discriminative awareness, other thoughts may come up in the mind due to past samskaras. These are the imprints. The sutra acts as a warning sign on the highway to liberation. The example that's used is cloth and the dust. If you shake a dusty cloth, most of the dust falls off immediately, but some fine dust trapped deep in the fibers requires repeated washing to remove it. Similarly, the gross ignorance is gone, but the fine dust of samskaras accumulated over millions of births is still trapped in the fabric of the chitta. So the seeds of the past are still alive. How do we kill these final stubborn seeds so they never sprout again? That's said in the next sutra. Getting rid of these disturbances from samskaras. Hanamesham kleshava tuktam. Hanam is removal. Harati means destroy. Hanti, to die. So Hanam means like removal, destruction. These old samskaras, Hanam, Esham, these, Esham means these. What these? These old samskaras, impressions, Hanam can be removed. Kleshavad, like the removal of the kleshat. Uktam, as has been said previously. Where has this been said? This has been said in Sutras 2, 10, and 11 of the second chapter. Sutras describing the removal of the kleshas. Samadhi bhavanatta kleshatanu karanatascha. The practice of Kriya Yoga leads to the cultivation of samadhi and the attenuation of the kleshas. Okay, Kriya Yoga is a subset of the niyamas. Okay, tapas, vadhyaya, ishvara pranidhanani, kriya yoga. So these three, when you do, they result in cultivation of samadhi and the attenuation of the kleshas. Klesha, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. These are the kleshas. The sutras describe, and the other sutras, Sutra 10, when the kleshas are settled, te prasavaheya sukshmaha. They can be removed easily by eliminating their potency. But when in their active form, when they become much out of control, when it's like a disease progressing, there can be eliminated only through meditation. Dhyana heyastat. So this is what Patanjali means by saying Hanamesham kleshavat uktam. These where this fine dust that is trapped in the fiber of the cloth, that can be removed, just like the kleshas can be removed, and that is how it can be removed is talked about in the second chapter. When they are subtle, they can easily be removed, but if they become deeply entrenched, only through meditation. Okay, so keep meditating, so you remove the sutra, remove the fine particles. Okay, now comes one of the most beautiful sutras of the entire Yoga Sutras. It talks about what is called Dharma Mega Samadhi. It is like a pouring of a cloud. Mega is a cloud, dark cloud full of water vapor. Like that, there's a cloud of dharma, righteousness, which is going to pour on you. You in that stage now. Prasankyanepi akusidasya sarpata vivekakyate dharma mega samadhi. The state of one who remains totally disinterested even in the highest rewards of Sankhya, the highest knowledge based on discernment, is called Dharma Mega Samadhi, the cloud of Dharma. Prasankyane, Sankhya literally means discernment. It is the theory of Sankhya, which is the sister theory of yoga, sister philosophy of yoga. Yoga is like the practical aspect, Sankhya is like the theory, how to get liberation. So, prasankyane, in that perfect state of Sankhya, discernment, akusidasyapi. So, even one who remains totally disinterested in this higher states of Sankhya, akusidasya api. Kusida, the word means usurer, usurer, one who lends money to gain interest for profit. So usurer, is that right? How to pronounce it? It's not the assurer, one who it's the usurer. So this is a person who lends money to gain interest. Akusida means no interest in getting interest. So someone who's totally disinterested in akusida api, one who remains totally disinterested. Api means even in the highest rewards of Sankhya, this state is called Dharma Mega Samadhi, or a cloud of Dharma which is about to fall, about to pour on this. Key is letting go, the para vairagyam. So after all this, now we are getting into the states of asamprajnata samadhi. Asamprajnata samadhi is where all the seeds, the latent seeds, are going to get burnt, so they never sprout again. Okay, the spiritual asurar, the yogi who practices hard, attains high knowledge, and expects a payout, is called a spiritual asurar. Like payout is omniscience, siddhi. Some people, or they want the status of a god man. So this is a yogi who can't go past the samprajnata samadhi. Whereas akusida, the true yogi who has reached the peak, the knowledge, I am distinct from the gunas, this knowledge is present, that yogi does not even grasp at this knowledge. They're indifferent to the glory of enlightenment. Only that yogi can go into asamprajnata samadhi and get kaivalya. Okay, so the mind becoming dharma mega, heavy cloud full of dharma that is going to pour down. So, para vairagyam, supreme detachment. We've seen that again and again before. This is what is needed for asampragnata samadhi, where you don't even have a seed of to focus on. It's sabija samadhi is the general, or nirbija samadhi is the general category. One of them is asampragnata samadhi, where there's nothing to focus on the mind because you've totally let go. In sampragnata samadhi, you have an object of focus. Here, there's nothing that is left. Dharma mega happens when the yogi develops distaste, vairagya, even for this omniscience, all-knowing nature. The letting go of the knowership, the mind has nothing left to hold on to. It stops fluctuating entirely. And the nature of the dharma, Vachaspati Mishra clarifies that it's not the dharma in the sense of social duty or ritual. It's the dharma in the sense of the ultimate truth. The word dharma has 100+ meanings in the Sanskrit dictionary. The mind becomes a cloud that rains nothing but truth, washing away the final remnants of ego. This is the stepping into asampragnata yoga. So Vyasa explains that when a yogi reaches the highest state of omniscience and discriminative knowledge, that is the prasankhya, they might still harbor a subtle attachment to that profound realization. However, when the yogi becomes completely disinterested even in this ultimate omniscience, seeing it merely as a subtle manifestation of the gunas, they attain a constant, unbroken flow of viveka-khyati, discriminative discernment. This unwavering detached state is called dharma mega samadhi, which ultimately washes away all remaining afflictions. It's not started pouring yet, but when it pours, that's it. We call this burning the seeds so they can never sprout again. That happens in asampragnata samadhi. So to summarize everything, now we are putting the whole thing together. The lower samadhis, sampragnata, savitarka, nirvitarka, vitarka, vichara, ananda, smita. And vitarka itself is divided into savitarka or nirvitarka, gross objects. Okay, then subtle objects. So vitarka, savitarka, nirvitarka is without the words coming in and with words coming in. Similarly, savichara, nirvichara, you're using language to express what you're feeling. The subtle, the smell of the rose. Here it is the beauty of the rose. You're just absorbed in that. Then ananda is just pure bliss. Sasmita is absorbed in the sense of I-ness without I am a teacher, I am a man, I am a father. All that is not there. I alone remains. Then you get some level of viveka-khyati. It's not continuous, but when it becomes continuous, para vairagyam is perfected. In the dharma mega, so it's a megam, cloud rich with dharma. It's a threshold to asampragnata samadhi. This is the state. When the water starts pouring, the latent impressions are rendered dormant like fried seeds. This leads to kaivalyam. Okay. After sasmita samadhi, you have some viveka-khyati, but once in a while there are some gaps because of this remaining kleshas. They are also washed away, and asampragnata samadhi, perfection is attained. Asampragnata samadhi is obtained through para vairagyam. Okay, so we saw the sampragnata, asampragnata in the first chapter. This is the threshold, the intermediate step. And the yogi becomes a jivan mukta. Tata klesha karma nivrittihi. From this samadhi, the kleshas and karma from deep impressions, they cease to act. Okay? From the samadhi, the kleshas, the afflictions, karma, in fact, coming from the deep impressions, they cease. Tataha, then thereafter, nivrittihi, cease, disappear, total cessation. So Vyasa declares that at this stage, the yogi becomes a Jivan Mukta, liberated while still living. So before enlightenment, karma equals action driven by the desire. I work because I want money. I help because I want merit. I eat because I crave taste. Then post Dharma Mega state, you still eat, you still work because for a different reason. This is the jnani, the state of a jnani. The jnani who's become a Jivan Mukta still works because it has to be done to help others. So post Dharma Mega state, when the kleshas are gone, the motive force for karma is also gone. Yogi still acts, but it is inaction in action. It is spontaneous, non-binding movement. The yogi creates no new merit and no new sin. No punya, no papam. The account book is closed. Okay, then we will look into the final stages of the yogi's journey towards Kaivalyam in the next class.